Hello, and welcome to my explanation of the home appraisal. Yeah, it's kind of boring, but important. So check it out. So I'm going to go ahead and start this off by first explaining why it's important to coordinate the home inspection with the appraisal. And what you're going to first notice is that the lender is going to want to order the appraisal right away because it helps them close on time. The appraisal can take a while. Typically, they'll tell you 7 to 10 days, sometimes more. So that can be frustrating for the lender. But let me tell you why we don't want to order the appraisal right away. And that is because it hurts your negotiations with the seller, point blank. When you order an appraisal, the lender orders through an appraisal company, third party, it's random, and that appraiser needs to make an appointment with the seller. That means the seller knows you're doing the appraisal, which makes it look like you're moving forward. And what you need to do is you need to pretend like you're willing to cancel this deal if the seller's not willing to do the repairs that you've requested of them in the inspection. If you're not, you immediately lose leverage. You are now spending money for an appraisal on a house that you might cancel. So either one, the seller knows you're not going to cancel and may not fix or repair things that you want them to fix. Or two, you actually do cancel because they're not going to fix the repairs and you've already spent that money on an appraisal. That can be 5 to 700 bucks that you just wasted, plus the inspection cost that you don't get back as well. Tell you what, I'm in the business of saving buyers money. And this is how we do it. Being smart about how and when we move forward and what we pay for. Some key things to know. You don't have to know everything about appraisal, and I'm not going to bore you to death with all the details. But some important things to know are the different types of appraisal, right? You have a different type of appraisal for the different loan that you have: FHA, VA, and conventional. Now, each appraiser is licensed with the state. So they are mandated to look for certain things. They're trained to look for certain things. They're trying to find the value of the house by looking at comps within a certain proximity, certain subdivision, and certain time frame. But beyond that, they're also inspecting the house for repairs that are needed, and they can be very different depending on the type of loan that you're getting. Now, appraisals are by far the most confusing thing in the process, and the truth is, guys, a lot of it doesn't completely make sense. Now, if you get into the theory of things, yeah, it's all done for a reason. But just to the common person, it's going to be really hard to understand why things are done the way they are. But it is what it is. It's part of the process. It's something you just have to do, and you have to go forward. You have to do it in order to get approved for a loan. So it is what it is, part of the process, and we just get it done the best as possible. So, best case scenario, you get a loan. The appraisal comes in at value or over value, which means you're good to go. Nothing really happens, and there's no repairs needed. If there are repairs needed, you go back to the seller and you try to negotiate that the seller will take care of those repairs. They typically, it's standard practice that they take care of it, but they are not, it's not mandatory, it's not required. So just know that. Second scenario, the appraisal comes in low, and now you have what's called the appraisal contingency. So the appraisal contingency, you have 5 days to renegotiate the price with the seller. Now, best case scenario, the seller just lowers the price. You put it on an addendum, make it official, you move forward. But it's not always the case. The buyer could come to the table and pay the difference cash, but that's
frowned upon by the buyer for a multitude of reasons, and it's not likely, although I have seen it happen when a buyer really, really loved a house. Or you just renegotiate. Maybe you do less repairs and then the seller lowers the price, or you meet in the middle. I mean, there's so many ways that you can handle it. It's just all about negotiating. The one time you don't have to get an appraisal is if there's no lender involved. So you're just paying cash, and typically that's an investor or somebody a little bit savvier, understands how to value homes, and they just buy something cash and move forward. But it's not always the case. Some people might have inherited money and they don't know how to value houses, but they have all this cash. There's a lot of situations where people might just have cash and they want to pay in cash. You can still get an appraisal. You just need to make it part of the contract, because in the AAR standard contract, if you're paying cash, you skip all of section 2, which is financing. So you need to attach the new addendum that includes the appraisal, even though it's a cash offer. The last thing to know, guys, is it's just not a super clean process where it's step one, step two, the seller has to do this, the buyer has to do this. What you'll find is that many things are negotiable, many things are standard, but don't have to be that way. But then many things are dictated by the contract. So you have to do things by the date specified in the contract. It's contractual, it's legal, and you're working with lenders, you're working with appraisers. They're all licensed and overseen by the government. And so you do have to follow certain rules, but it's not like a super clean process. You have to see what happens. And then with what happens, it tells you what your next step is going to be. And then what happens with that next step, that's going to tell you, okay, now we can either do this or we can do that. So just understanding how that works, pretty important. So ask questions and understand that it's not the easiest process to comprehend. So that's a huge win once you get past the hurdle of an appraisal. It's something usually you want to take a moment to celebrate.